Welcome you to customer with the EDA, BCI, or using Microsoft SQL Server SSMS tool to work with the U2 server. U2 customer have several options to exchange data with external database. It can be using EDA or BCI or simple tool using the SSMS tool to retrieve the data from U2 server to other database. In this PowerPoint slide, I will explain what is the difference. And also we're using one simple UniVerse customer file to work with the SQL server for this demo. So first, I'd like to explain the difference. For EDA, we call external database access. This is convert the U2 data to external 1NF database. It can be Oracle, DB2, SQL Server, MySQL, and PostgreSQL. An idea is after you convert to remote server, you still can using U2 basic program, SQL, or U2 command to work with the EDA file. And that's just one version data stored in the remote database. By using this solution, it requires EDA license. You might be also need some third-party license ODBC driver like Easysoft ODBC driver for AX. Most of customer will integrate with some replication server. It can be multiple replication or using the single server replication with EDA to make any change on the U2 site and immediately update record on the remote database. Some customers still using the BCI. BCI solution is using the ODBC connection for all external database. So it's not using U2 ODBC client here. It must be using other ODBC driver to connect to other database. You also need to familiar with the basic to develop your BCI application to migrate U2 data or extract the data from the external database. So on some platform, you still need to require some additional third-party ODBC driver, like a Easysoft ODBC driver for AX, or maybe some other third-party product to make an ODBC connection. Third option is if you work with the SQL Server, you might be want to using Microsoft SQL Server link server. They will be using ODBC client here to retrieve data from U2 server and retrieve data insert back to the SQL server. So what kind of solution for U2 EDA? Right now have so many options now. One is for Oracle. Oracle, we using the OCI client. If you're familiar with the SQL Plus TMS names.ora configuration file setting, that is part of the OCI solution. If you're using DB2, maybe use CLI client. For the Microsoft SQL Server, you have you can use a Microsoft ODBC client or using third-party product like a Easysoft, like a Data Direct, to work with the EDA solution. Latest the EDA support will be MySQL. You can use the MySQL ODBC client or PostgreSQL Server. Use the PostSQL ODBC client. So when you're using EDA, you need to specify configuration will be EDA config file. And after you set up is right, you can using EDA Connect, EDA Convert to convert the U2 file to remote database. So you will see this slides. Most of the common right now is using SQL Server or using Oracle or using MySQL or PostgreSQL. So when you use this solution, all the basic program or command or SQL command on the U2 UniVerse Unidata is still working fine with the EDA file. So when you're using this EDA solution, you need to consider the license. On the Unidata UniVerse, you need to EDA license. If you try to connect to SQL Server on Windows, it can get the Microsoft ODBC driver. If on Linux, Microsoft also provide the Linux ODBC driver for Linux. You might be choose the Easysoft ODBC driver or other third-party product. If you run it on AX platform, look like you need to find the third-party product like Easysoft. If you're using the remote server is Oracle, definitely you can go to the Oracle website to download the OCI client, like a DB2 is from IBM. If you want to use the MySQL, then you go to the MySQL website to download the MySQL ODBC client. They support the Windows and couple Linux platform ODBC driver. Also, we support PostgreSQL. So, how UniVerse EDA work with external database? So basically, you need to using a connection and also with the EDA Schema Manager tool and create a called EDA data source. When you update and delete the data on the U2 site, then it will automatically update the external database. And reverse way, if you try to list the EDA file, actually is retrieve the data from external database. But very beware, it can be slow if your schema is very complicated. It might be join so many tables and come back to the U2 site. EDA file basically is a header, stored all the schema information. So it can be after EDA file created, it can move to anywhere. But when you have a schema change, you need to do the right now. Most of case you need to do the EDA reconvert process. And EDA file also can put other account to access the same remote data. I will show you in my demo. If you on U2 file have an index, basically the index will create in the remote database. So for this right hand side, you will see I create a simple state file with the name index. Then after you convert it, on the SQL Server also create the index for a name field. It's just for index. BCI. BCI is also is a lot of customers using this solution to convert or migrate data to external database. BCI all using ODBC connection on the Windows and Unix. On the UniVerse side, if you're using BCI, you need to set up additional setting in the uvodbc.config file, dbmstyle equal ODBC. You can, after you set it up, you can using connect command to verify your setting. You also can use in the BCI application to do the insert, update, delete, whatever you like to extract or update the external database. So license let it be almost the same EDA, but just a little bit different for BCI. All BCI is using ODBC connection only. So even you try to connect to Oracle, you also need to ODBC client. You try to connect to DB2, you also need to ODBC client. So that's the only difference between BCI connection and EDA connection. So sometimes like a AIX platform, you might need to additional ODBC license from third-party product, for example, like Easysoft. So I was using the BCI, you see the external interface. On Unix, a little bit different. Its main thing is called Unix ODBC Driver Manager to find your ODBC DSM. And after for my demo, I all using called SQL Server 2019. It will connect to one my sample SQL Server database install on the SQL Server 2019. So this the you can connect application. So for my demo, I already create the two table for BCI. So if you are called a new customer, new orders, MV, it just gives you idea. These two table try to compare with the EDA solution. When you run EDA convert for the customer file, basically you will create a customer table. Also, I will create another orders and also MV table for matter value field data. Uh, but when you're using BCI, a little bit complicated. I will demo to show you how they insert data to the remote database. So I create two BCI program. So it's one is called BCI insert underscore ODBC to the customer. Uh, it was same thing, move all the customer file data to a new customer and new orders and that's MV. And after I create a new table on the SQL Server, I can run the BCI select underscore ODBC customer and retrieve the data back. When you're using the BCI, the original customer file data is still there, no change. So if you make any change on the SQL Server side, it won't affect on the UniVerse customer file. But for the EDA, it's different. When you change anything on the SQL Server, immediately affect the U2 file. The last auction to some customer familiar with the SQL Server script, they might be want to just retrieve data from U2 server. So they have another way to write a script to retrieve data back to the SQL Server. But on the U2 side, you must be schema created. For example, you might be using hs.mn tool to activate your live account or work with the hs.sales. On Unidata, you need to use the VSG tool to generate the tables. So when you do this way, you need to one by one, depend how many table will be generated by the schema. So for example, like a customer normally will expand to two table. One is called customer, another will be called orders MV. So it can be multiple table. You need to write the different script to retrieve the data one by one. So for this demo, I already create called new customer 2 table. I also can show you it's almost the same similar. So I can extract the data back to the SQL Server. So here's the sample script. So basically move the data, the script basically using declared and some very simple. I using the link server, and you need to create a UV underscore U2 ODBC 64. So they're using a link server and extract the data to your SQL server. So next, where I will show you the demo one by one. So assume for the EDA environment already set it up. So for example, I already have my Windows environment. This my UniVerse is running top to 1. So I already have EDA data source. So one of the EDA data source is called SQL Server 2019. Is set it up so they basically use the same OD system DSN called SQL Server 2019. So this is, if you look at this, the SQL Server 2019 is the connect to remote the SQL Server 2019. So when I connect to using this way, and I can use in the EDA Schema Manager tool. So I already set up, everything is ready. So I convert. So they already set this one, set up the EDA data source. So this one is connect to remote SQL Server 2019. So after set it up, I can try to convert. I already have put it called hs.sales, the database. I just create call something called customer X. So customer X, I already mapping the schema. So this customer schema is the same customer called customer X. So I can do the conversion. So I already convert a track record, convert to a SQL Server. So if you go back to my this is my SQL Server environment, I connect to a UV database. So from the UV database, I can refresh. So you will generate two tables. One is called customer X, and also is customer X dot orders underscore MV. So this is the one file, one customer X file converted to SQL Server table. So after I convert it, I back to UniVerse. So again, list X. So it's retrieve data from our SQL Server. So next step I will show you is the, if you look at the account on the server side. So here's the server side. You will see called customer.x.eda save folder. That's the original UniVerse file. So after created, actually is create a file pointer called customer X. This one actually is the EDA file pointers. So if I move this one to other locations, so for example, I have another account called UniVerse. It's in the hs.sales .service. So where am I? So I tried to create the city block. I tried to set the pointer here. Right now is no customer X in the H.service account, so I can copy this EDA file pointer, copy to where inside the H.service. I have, let's call H.service. I can put here. So this the customer X EDA pointer, and plus I already copied the dictionary D underscore customer. So I using, if you go back to here, I can this X. So you will see there might be some other error. For example, they have I type because there's missing some field for I type field. But at least the D type field data is coming back without any problem. So for example, I can edit from here X1. So if I change the first name, so if I change the first name Samuel to Samuel X, if you look at this another file pointer, if I you see the Samuel X, it is that you will get the same data back. If you go to the SQL Server, you can see the customer X retreat. So you see the same Samuel X data. So it's all consistent everywhere on the hs.sales account, h.service account, and the SQL Server side. You will complete got the same data back. On the previous, I also do the testing for one state X. So I will show you another sample file. It's called state X. So EDA schema in the hs.sales. Called state XX. So it's a very simple state X. It's ID and name. And I originally put the index, create the index. So if you look at the before conversion, the state XX have a one name index. So after I convert it, if you look at the converted on the SQL Server side, if you look at the state XX, yeah, this one is called state XX. It's very simple, just two field. So if you retrieve the data, it's just two field. But additional, it will create the index. They call this one. This one actually is for name index. If you have an index on the server side, when you convert it, we generate the index on the SQL Server. So let's just how you work on the EDA. And I also have another machine already have actually this one. It's on AIX. So you see OS level. This one I use in Easysoft ODBC. So I just like to show you, if you running on Easysoft, then you need to set up additional environment variable. Just need to set the environment variable. After I set it, I also try to show you the license for Easysoft. So that's a way to store the Easysoft license. You will run the license client. It will show you I have a temporary license. I can see the license. So I install on this box. I have a temporary license. So I can work with the Easysoft ODBC driver. So after set it up, I already have a DSM. So for example, I have iSQL. So can iSQL. So worked. So after it's working fine, so I can this is the unit data. I can show you is the unit data. So I reset up unit data. So unit data, I already have EDA data source is set it up. So I can use an EDA connect SQL Server 2019 with YouTube. So it's no problem. So let's just wait on AIX to work with the EDA solution. So next demo I'd like to show you is with the BCI. So on the BCI first, you need to first make sure I already create 3 sample table SQL Server table in the this account UV database. So I already have create call this call new customer. So this the I using the SQL statement to create new customer table. Also, I want to show you is another table called new orders and that's called MV on the SQL Server side. So I can using the BCI program to restrict the customer file input these 2 tables. So I can show you the program. So first program called BCI insert ODBC customer. So first part is pretty simple. Just try to make a ODBC client connection. So the most difficult part is the here the binding. So you need to familiar with the unit basic program. Also mapping all the field to mapping to SQL Server. So after you need to insert and binding for a single value. If you have for this program, is also retrieve all the sub value field and create the SQL statement and insert to another orders MV table. So if you look at my program here, so list BP. So I want to AE BP. So let's just the same thing, same program I showed you before. So basically they have an insert for a single value called new customer. Also insert another table. It's called this binding. So extract all the field, do some date conversion. So you will see is insert another field for sub-value table, meta value the data. You see the second one is for orders MV. So when I run it, say I want to connect to SQL Server 2019, U2. Okay, that's not correct. So try one more time. SQL Server 2019. Yeah. So this time I input the correct password. So they will insert all the data to the remote SQL Server. So if you go back to SQL Server, if you look at this one, show you it's come back all the single value data, and next will be come back to meta value data insert to a remote SQL Server. So I also have a program called AEBP, BCI, ODBC, customer. So you will retrieve the data from remote server. You see this program. First part is almost the same. It's just a make a connection. But second part is the SQL statement. I'm using the SQL is direct to retrieve the field data back one by one. So when I run it, so it's running same thing, U2. So you retrieve data back from remote SQL server. So third part we're using for link server to retrieve the data back. So before I want to using the Microsoft SQL Server link server, I also need to create another table. So another table will be on the SQL Server. I call the name will be new customer 2. So this one will be new customer 2. So it's this one. I already created the table. So it's no data here. So after this, then this, everything is on the client side, on the SQL Server side. On this SQL Server side, I need to create the DSN. So DSN, I want to using called UV-U2ODBC64. This one will connect back to the UniVerse. So I test connection. Successful. I using 64-bit called UV_U2ODBC64. It connect back to the UniVerse HS.sales account. Inside here, I need to create a link server. So with servers object, they have a link server. I using this. This is the link server name. Inside the link server, so they have some setting using provider called ODB for ODBC driver. Then specify the data source, connect to database, provide the remote username password, and the server option, very important, RPC, RPC out, yes, to send the request to the U2 server. So inside here, you can see list the no, because I connect to HS.sales, so you can see they have so many table already on the UniVerse site. So for here, I still use the same customer tag. I just want to retrieve the data from UniVerse HS.sales called customer file, and just try to retrieve the single value data. Because I want to using the syntax, something like this. So I can get new query. This is the syntax. Pretty simple. So I will store in the UV underscore database. Then the statement is using the link server called UV underscore U2 ODBC64. Then I retrieve the data from UniVerse and insert back to the new customer 2. So when I run this, so UV U2 ODBC64, make sure I can set the right UV U2 ODBC64. Open query. Okay, so I set the right. I choose the link server called UV underscore U2 ODBC64. Then I successful run this script. So after I run this script, I go back to verify the customer 2. DBO customer 2. Yeah, new customer 2. So this time I retrieve all the customer single value data back. But if you want to get another meta value table, so like orders and V, you need to run another script. So if you have multiple association, you might need to set up another script to retrieve the data back. So hopefully a simple demo to give you idea how to get the data from UniVerse. You can use in EDA, you can use in BCI, or using as SSMS tool from SQL Server to get the data back. Thank you. Thank you for your watching.